Okay, so I am live. I am doing it from my room today. Hello, Amanda. I'm doing it from my room today because I have a very busy schedule and I'm taking my daughter Abby to the airport. She is flying to Arkansas to be with my family. I've got two siblings and my mom that lives there, so she is flying out there to spend the week with them. So it's back to Chicago for me. Yay, not really. But I figured, I know I did not do any type of announcements for this. I should probably share it. All right, let me share it really quickly because this is early. And the moment, I just didn't want to skip again this week. We did a premiere last week. If you haven't seen that, head over there and check it out. Now, when I do it from home, sometimes it buffers a little. So hang on there. Hopefully, you'll be able to get the gist of what I am saying. And everything will be fine. I know the sound is not as good either, but that's what you get when you live stream from the country where we live. I'm just thankful to have internet. We lived here for a few years and we had no internet. And without internet, I could not teach, do my online lessons, have my online business, all those type of things. So, yeah, so, okay. So here we go. Let's get into it. Okay. So last week I was at Revival Baptist Church Family Camp and great week. We always do every year. We do question and answers with us and the Boyles and then Pastor Theo Matthews and his wife. So watch for that on Revival Baptist. If you're not subscribed to them, go subscribe to them. They will be uploading a question and answer. And we always do that. We also do split sessions. So Pastor Boyle or my husband, I don't know who did it, did do the men, and then I do a lady split session. This year I did it. They were going to live stream. I don't think it got live stream though. I think someone forgot to start it or something. So I was like, well, that works out good for me because I can just do what for Gently Led Sisters, what I did for Revival Baptist Family Camp. So that is where we are today. I am going to be doing the same lesson that I did for the split session there. Same exact outline, same exact testimony. So, all that to say, if you were there and you already heard this, you might not want to watch it again because it's going to be a repeat of what I did there. If they did happen to live stream it or record it, I am really sorry for doing it now on my own show without before you were able to put it on yours. But I have a feeling it didn't get recorded. I never really confirmed it, but I think it didn't. So I wanted to just be very authentic and real when I was there. And some of the people that I connect to the most, some of the people that I connect to the most are the ones that are the most honest and open when it comes to things that we struggle with in our life. So while I have talked or touched a little bit on this topic in the past, I really did a deep dive into it with the personal testimony of everything that I went through postpartum depression after Hannah, actually. But I kind of gave a little bit of my backstory and what led up to that. Another thing that I did not say there was I do think that having 6 daughters in a row compounded the problem. And with each of my last 3 or 4 girls, it was worse. I never had any of this with my boys. So it didn't start until kid number 5, which I'll go into. But I named it for when I was there at Revival, motherhood is hard and it's okay to admit that. So I'm always conflicted what I want to talk about. They have a lot of teen girls there, and I put out the idea that maybe next year we could have 2 different sessions, one for just the teen girls, because my heart goes out to teen girls. I love teen girls. My husband and I were at our old church. He was the youth director, and so we worked with teens for 10 years. And so I really have a heart for teens. And so I'm always conflicted. Do I want to do something aimed towards the teens? Do I want to do something aimed towards the young moms? So I chose the young moms just because there's a lot of them there. So I want to be an encouragement. And that's the whole reason I started this channel, which is Gently Led Sisters. And I've always loved the verse from Isaiah 40:11, which says, He shall feed his flock like a shepherd. He shall gather the lambs with his arm and carry them in his bosom, and shall gently lead those that are with young. And that is why this channel is called Gently Led Sisters. I wanted to start this talk out today with a personal testimony. I find that I crave honesty and truthfulness in my relationships and my friendships, and I've also always tried coming across that way to others. While I've touched on some of my past experiences, I haven't really done a deep dive into it. So here we go. And I wanted to start out with the way I was. So I was raised in an era where feelings, emotions, and even different weeks of my cycle were never talked about. My mom came from a generation where I love you was rarely said and where emotions were stuffed down and never to see the light of day. After she got saved, she went full into Christianity. We tried different types of the Baptist world. We even went to Gothard seminars, although neither her nor I were really very impressed by those. We finally settled on IFB. If you don't know what IFB is, it's Independent Fundamental Baptist. I feel very blessed to have been raised IFB, but IFB still has some problems and they have some issues. And I think it's okay to call out things that we see that maybe potentially can cause harm to others. So while I've always felt unsettled about some things I saw or experienced in IFB, it wasn't until the past 10 years or so that I really could articulate what I saw or the problems I saw. So, one thing I see now about the way I was raised, and even some of the churches that I was raised in, was the striving to appear perfect, to have it all together, to have your hair done at all times, to have your makeup done to perfection, to be poised and classy and never raise your voice. And while that's probably molded me into a lot of the type of person that I am today, I always strive to be ladylike, classy, graceful, godly. There are some things that I have seen that have hurt moms, especially young moms, with the philosophy that all must be perfect and all must appear perfect at all times. I had pretty uneventful pregnancies and postpartum until Allie came along 13 years ago. I mean, Abby threw us for a loop. She was kid number 3, my first daughter. When she was breached at the last minute, I bounced back pretty quickly even after that. And in fact, even though she was breached, it was still not as difficult as my posterior babies. With Allie, she was my first posterior baby, and I pushed for a couple of hours. I was thinking, this is baby number 5. Why am I having such issues? But she came out face up, facing the ceiling, as did Lana a few years after her. Because of this posterior birth, I developed herniated discs in my back. However, because I was crazy and because my church was very adamant about church attendance and because my husband was on staff, I was released from the hospital on a Tuesday. I think it was pretty sure it was a Tuesday, and I went to revival that night. I believe this furthered my problems that were already developing in my back from the rough delivery. And let me throw a warning in here, okay? You have a huge plate-sized wound on your uterus after giving birth. I mean, your placenta has ripped away from that. It's plate-sized. Your placenta is pretty big. So you have that plate-sized wound on your uterus after giving birth. The Lord put requirements in the Bible, and he put requirements based off of if a woman had a girl or a woman had a boy. And he wanted women to stay, what is it, like not secluded, but they were to be apart, set apart for a time while they healed and until they were considered clean or whatever. But I really think he put those in place so that a woman would not overdo it, because we have a huge wound after we give birth. And I really believe that a lot of women overdo it, and they're like, I'm Wonder Woman, I can do everything I want. They're up, lugging kids around and doing housework a week after giving birth, and that is not smart. You've been through a major medical event, and this is the thing, if you want a lot of kids, you need to allow your body to heal. If you have the belief, even if you have the belief, I'm giving my womb over to the Lord and I want to have a lot of kids, then you're in this for the long haul. If you do not take care of yourself after having a baby, if you push yourself to do everything you were doing, all the housework, go to church the day after you give birth, all these things, you're not giving your body time to heal. And if you're in this for the long run, you need to give your body time to heal. Okay, so I want to throw that out there. You're not forsaking the assembling if you are allowing your body to heal after giving birth to a human being. Okay, you are not forsaking the assembling. It's called, God had those guidelines in the Bible for a reason. So maybe it's smart. I know we don't do a lot of the dietary things now. I know even during a woman's cycle, she's not like required, we're not under the law. We're not required to stay in our room, even though sometimes that might be better for everyone involved. If we stayed in our room during the week of our cycle, maybe that's why God did it. But we're not required to do those things, but those were still there as guidelines. A lot of the health things they did were there for guidelines. And I firmly believe that a woman needs to take the time to heal after having birth, after having given birth. So please heal. Please don't push it. Okay, so I completely overdid it. But in my mind, I had to, okay, because I had to be at church. I had to have my ducks in a row. And I even remember being complimented like, wow, you are amazing. Showing up the day you're released from the hospital. Well, now that's just stupidity. I'm looking back and I'm like, that's stupidity. I would not have complimented a woman who showed up the day after getting out of the hospital from having a baby. Wow, good job. No, go home and rest. God put those requirements there for a reason. So my back problems got so bad after this. They started escalating. Hey, Nicole, Ashley, Sarah. My back problems started escalating so bad that it got to the point where I had to crawl around my house. I could not even walk. It progressively got worse to where when I was standing there, I could literally feel my discs slipping out of place, and then they'd slip back in. I was taking 5, 6 Advil at a time without any relief, and nothing was even taking the edge off. I remember someone had died and I had to play a funeral during this time where it got really bad. And I I still to this day, I had taken like 6 Advil before I went, just hoping, please take a little bit of the edge of the pain off. And as I was sitting there at the piano bench, it was one of the hardest things because when I was standing, it felt a little better, but it's when I'm sitting, it's like it's all compressed together. It was agonizing. And I remember sitting on that piano bench just praying for the funeral to hurry up and get done so I could get off that piano bench because my back was in so much pain. I found a chiropractor that I started going to. I started scheduling chiropractor visits, but it was very slow going. I went every day for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then I went down to every other day, and then I went down to every week, and then I went to every other week. Now I go about every 2 weeks, but this week that I was at camp last week, I had not been to the chiropractor since March. That's a whole story in and of itself, but I had not been since March, and I had just been putting it off. I knew I needed to go. Well, I finally found one, a woman chiropractor in Dixon. I had actually gone to her when she had tried to done some adjustments to flip Hannah when she was still breech. So I knew I liked her and everything. Well, I went last Monday, and then I went from having my chiropractor visit where she said, I adjusted a ton. You might need to ice it. You need to drink a lot of water because your body is releasing all this tension. I went from that to getting on a plane, to lugging babies through an airport, to lugging bags. And we flew through Frontier, which is like the cheapest airline in the world. And because of this, we had to wade through swamps and go up mountains and go down valleys. Just kidding, not really, but it's in the furthest terminal. It's in Terminal 5. So Terminal 5 is like the international terminal, and then Frontier is like way at the back. And we only had our little personal bags that we were bringing, no suitcases to put stuff on, no strollers, nothing like that. So we had the babies in one hand, we had 2 bags over each arm, and then we get on the uncomfortable Frontier. And so last week my back was a mess. And I told the ladies, I said, I'm sorry, if I look like I'm in pain, I'm not depressed or anything. I'm literally in pain. I had to ice my back the entire week. Um, so obviously I wasn't sleeping in my bed, and I probably way overdid it. I was getting 20,000 steps a day, which further aggravated it. So all that to say, I deal with chronic back pain. I don't like talking about it a lot. I don't like making a big deal about it because I'm not a victim. It's just something that happened because of my hard births. And I just deal with it. I go to chiropractor visits, I ice it a lot. Sometimes I direct things from my recliner. If it gets really bad, I have to just be in my recliner. I have to sleep in my recliner. So I deal with that. Um, I deal with it every day of my life. But then Lana was my worst birth. I pushed for 3 hours with her. Remember, this is baby number 6. She was another posterior baby, and I had a pretty serious wound to recover from after she was born because I had to be cut when she came out due to her head position. She was looking to the ceiling, but kind of tilted. So she had like this little kaput thing on her head, they called it. I was just relieved after her, though, that regular chiropractor appointments had kept my back pain at a minimum. Kelly was uneventful and thankful she was not posterior. Hannah, though, um, Hannah was a whole different ballpark. I thought I had postpartum issues after Allie. I think with Allie, it was mainly due to my physical problems were the hard part. But after Hannah, that was something else. She's 3 next month. And I finally feel okay revisiting that dark time in my life because for a while, up until just recently, I would almost like, if I thought about it, start having hot flashes and kind of this anxious feeling, this pit in my stomach. And I just didn't want to think about it. So I just put that out of my mind. I can finally talk about it. Hannah was breech at 39 weeks. My midwife told me she could try an ECV, turning her head down from the outside. She had a practicing OBGYN in the hospital do it. Many ECVs are unsuccessful, and she told me if it didn't work, I'd have to go home, wait a week, and then have a C-section if she was still breech. They would not let me deliver vaginally if she was still breech. Of course, I didn't want that. I'm like, this is number 8. Don't want that to happen. The plan was, since I was already contracting every few minutes and I was dilated, that if she turned, they would break my water and I would have her. And thankfully, as many of you know, that was successful. I really feel it was a lot of the prayers from all of you. I could feel your prayers, and they were able to make her flip. Her head was up here. They actually tried flipping her forward. She would not. So then they actually managed to flip her completely around the other way, which the OBGYN told me. She said, I have never had this happen where we did a complete backflip. Usually it's a forward flip, but they did a complete backflip. For some reason on my left side, it's very tight, and there was something there just stopping her. So they did get her to term. They broke my water, and I went from having contractions every few minutes to full-blown labor in 5 minutes. I had her within an hour. And I think because of this, it threw everything off kilter. It threw my emotions off. Um, because of this, I've since learned that women that have emergency C-sections and don't go through much labor, or women that have extremely quick labors, a lot of times it's not enough time because contractions and all this stuff working in our body, that is what releases the prolactin, which then triggers your milk to be produced. And because it was such a quick, 45 minutes, I'm pushing her out from the time I had my water broken, my body didn't have enough time to realize I was in labor. And thus, it didn't trigger that prolactin hormone to start my milk supply. So she started out nursing wonderfully, but by the time I went home, it was not coming in. I was a little nervous because normally the day I go home from the hospital, which is 2 or 3, my milk has come in. Day 4, there was no milk. Day 3, no milk. Day 5, no milk. By this time, she was ravenous. And I had not prepared for this because all of my babies had nursed just great. And I never had problem with milk production, never had problem with my milk coming in. I always had an oversupply at first. Well, that didn't happen this time. I didn't have really a good pump, I don't think. So what I did was I could tell she was ravenous and she had not had a wet diaper in like 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours. I was very concerned. So I just that day I had gotten a bottle of formula. I ripped open the formula and I made her 2 ounces. She was so hungry. She gulped it down so fast. And she ate so fast. She ended up puking up a little bit of it later. But I was so guilty. I felt so guilty because she had been so hungry and I wasn't able to produce milk for her. I was trying to pump, nothing was coming. What kind of mom was I? Since I gave her the bottle after that, though, that's when it all went downhill. So nursing just suddenly tanked. Everything tanked. She wanted nothing to do with it. She only wanted the easy stuff. So I started triple feeding because I'm like, I love nursing. That's one of the best parts for me about having a newborn And the baby is that bond that nursing brings. It's always been so easy for me, but she wasn't getting it. So I would try for a half hour to latch her. And then when she wouldn't latch, when my milk wouldn't let down, I would give her pumped milk. By this time, I was finally pumping a little bit, but it was still very hard going. I was pumping a little bit, so I've given that, and then I would pump some more. So I was triple feeding. I sat in the recliner for hours trying to get this figured out. My husband would come home, and I would be a basket case emotionally, and he would say, just give her formula. It's not a big deal. Just stop trying to nurse her. But there was something in me. I'm stubborn. My friends told me it's not worth it. Just give it up. Very dark place. I was not thinking straight. And in my mind, if I gave up, I would be a lazy mom. Okay. So my internet connection is unstable. It said, so sorry if I buffer. So in my mind, I would be a lazy mom if I gave up. It was around this time I was still home recovering, and I was listening to preaching, and a preacher that I was listening to basically was talking about the things that are better for you and your family and the things that are better for your kids. And he said something along the lines of breastfeeding is better, and a lot of you don't breastfeed because you're lazy. And that is not, that was like the last thing I needed to hear during this time of my life. And so I just remember thinking, am I lazy? Am I wanting to give this up because I'm lazy? Because there's a lot of work. That's all I did. That's all I did. And I directed the house from the recliner. I was up pretty much all day trying to figure it out. I was up all night, 1 a.m, struggling with it, trying to figure it out. So I truly felt broken at this part. And I know a lot of you are gonna be like, why is this a big deal? You just give up nursing and then everything's fine, right? Well, then I was thinking ahead, like, if I get this figured out, I'll have most of my babies nursed till a year of free milk. If I get this figured out, it'll be worth it. So it kept me going, even though I probably should have stopped. But how come number 8 was the hardest when it came to nursing? I think because my body had such a short labor, it didn't produce the prolactin needed. But I couldn't stop. I don't know why. Even my husband was encouraging me, you do what's best for you. And I would weigh herself. I would weigh her. Like I became obsessed with making sure she was gaining every day because I didn't want to be one of these moms that was like starving her baby without knowing it. And so I weighed her every day. And if she would go up an ounce, I would be ecstatic. If she would go down an ounce, I would panic. I'd be like, that's it. I'm only giving her bottles. I'm not even trying to nurse. She's obviously not getting much. But I had all these voices going through my head. I remember sitting there looking at the TV. Everything was dark. Everything was dark at that time in my life. That's all I remember. Everything's dark. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm such a failure. Why can't I figure this out? This is number 8. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with my body? Why is my body betraying me? I remember just having this pit in my stomach and it wouldn't go away. And just everything's darkness. I got to the point where, because I'm dealing with all of this and my emotions are crashing and, hormones are going crazy. My body's trying to figure this out. I thought I was going to hurt anyone, but because I would have anxiety attacks, like my whole body would start flushing, I would get hot, and I was just at a bad point. And I had never ever experienced this before in my life, ever. So I didn't quite know what to do. I knew that I needed to just take it day by day, and I knew I needed to ask for help. And there were many times my friend Sarah, who's in the live chat, would call me and we would just talk about it. And she would try to give me tips because she had a hard time with her first. She was just there. And my friend Amanda, she was texting me. I had other friends telling me, just do what's best for you. Just give it up if you need to. I don't think it was just the nursing thing. It was just my hormones were going completely crazy. So I remember a time I told my husband I don't want to be alone. So one of my kids would stay home with me during church services while I was recovering, and we would watch a live stream and everything. There were times when I called him and I said, can you please come home? I need you to come home. I just need you here. And he would come home, he would sit on the couch and he wouldn't say anything. And I would just lay with my head on his lap. That's all I could do at that point. but just him being there and solid next to me, and just he didn't even have to say anything. We didn't talk, he didn't say anything. I just needed him. And he was really good about that. So I would spend hours in the recliner nursing. I got a device from the hospital to help me. It's like this little tube that straps to you, and it has milk in it. It's like this little hanging thing with milk, and the milk goes down, and it tries to get them to latch because as they suck from this little tiny tube, but you would have to have it positioned just right. And it got to the point where I had PTSD even looking at that thing. So I had to carry my pump, my formula, everything with me everywhere we went. I remember watching other moms at that time nurse their babies. We'd be sitting in the nursing room, or the nursery back there, and they'd just like whip their baby up and just like boom, they were nursing. Well, I had to have like warm rags on me to encourage letdown, because I found after this one, and your milk letting down is very much mental, because if I would think about it, my milk would not let down. But if I would just like, I'm not thinking about it and put it in my head, put the warm rags on me, then my milk would let down a lot faster. So I just remember I had all this stuff I was carrying everywhere. And in that went for, yes, supplemental nursing system. But it's really tough because you have to have the tube positioned just right. And then a lot of the babies don't like it because even though it's tiny, they can still kind of feel it. And it's weird with their latch. So, ugh, horrible. So this went on for almost 7 weeks. So 7 weeks I did this. She finally decided at week 7 she only wanted to nurse and no more bottles until she weaned herself at 9 months. And I weaned her very early because at that point I was a little bit better in my hormones and my emotions. I had gotten 9 months of nursing in, and she was still a tough nurser at 9 months. She didn't want to eat very long. And anyone who knows Hannah just knows it's Hannah now. It's amazing seeing the different personalities that come out in your kids. Hannah is a super fast eater now. If you put her down at the table and you put her food, in 2.5 minutes, it will be gone. And she's like, I'm done. And she doesn't want to eat anymore. She's not one to be lazy with her food, to sit there and eat for a long time. She's always active on the go, go, go. And she was like that as a newborn, as a baby. So now I know that. But because she ate so quickly, it never built up my milk supply. So by the end, I didn't even get engorged when I weaned her. I just didn't have much with her because she wasn't a solid nurser. So, but now that she's almost 3, I finally feel like the Cassandra again. And do I think it was a spiritual problem back then? Absolutely not. And that's the warning I want to put out, because growing up in the IFB world, depression was always labeled a spiritual problem. No matter what it was always a spiritual problem. Well, maybe if you're not having babies every 2 years and you're not going through all these changes and all these hormones that life is throwing at you, maybe, just maybe, it might be a spiritual problem. But there is no other time in my life that I was calling out to the Lord more for help. There was no other time in my life where I was praying nonstop, where I leaned on my Lord, when I leaned on my faith, when I leaned on my husband to get me through those dark moments. So there was no other time. There was clearly something hormonal going on. There was clearly imbalances. And once I started working on adjusting those, then things started falling back into place. And I did have to do herbs. We'll talk a little bit about those. There were some supplements I started on that I needed to take that did help a little bit. There were some supplements that kind of made it worse, so I stayed away from those. But looking back, I'm glad that that happened with number 8, because I had so much help. If I had 4 little ones, it would have been completely overwhelming. And I tell you all that to say, motherhood is hard. Having babies is hard. Being pregnant is hard. And it's okay to admit that. It's not okay to stuff it down and deal with this by yourself. You need to have help. You need to have a support group. You need to have an outlet. You need to tell someone. Okay, I am so glad. I'm sure my friends got so sick of hearing about my struggles, but they were there for me. And I'm the type of person, I need to tell someone. I cannot, if I am very, very quiet, it's a bad sign. It's a bad sign. I need to be able to talk about it. I need to process it. I need to work it through in my head. I need to talk about it with my friends. So, and a lot of women, they just tend to stuff it all down and deal with it to where it gets to an unhealthy level. So I want you all to know that this is the hardest thing you will ever do, but hang in there because it does get better. And then when those hard times come, what are some tips to get you through? Yes, and Sarah, you helped me so much when I went through that. So yes, and Amanda did too, so many times. And she says now she knew back then I was not the Cassandra that she knew, but you can't really fix it. It's something that every woman has to work through and get through. You just can only be there for them. You can be there for them and help them get through it, pray for them. It's just be there if they need to vent. You can be there. And Amanda also had a touch with it after Micaiah, but she also had a horribly traumatic birth experience with him. And yeah, she went through a lot of things. You're not in your right mind, and I wish there was more awareness when it came to this, because I have heard so many stories in the last couple of years, and I never got to this point where I wanted to harm myself or I wanted to harm my children. I've never been at that point in my life. But I was at the point where I thought I wasn't the best mom for Hannah. I remember laying there one night and I was laying in my bed. She was sleeping so cute in her little bassinet right by my bed. And I just remember thinking, someone else would be such a better mom for you. I'm failing you. Like, I can't even feed you. My body's not doing what it's supposed to do. Someone else would be so much better for you. And I remember thinking that. And those thoughts do go through women's heads. But I want awareness too, because there are too many moms that aren't getting help. And you need to reach out for help if you're going through any of this. So, number one, have a support system. Reach out for help. You have to ask. I remember one Sunday, it was like the first or second Sunday when we were into this whole supplemental nursing thing, and I was just looking for helps, whether that's nipple shield, whether that was Lananol, balm, anything. And Morgan, one of the ladies in our church, um, she actually asked in the group chat, is there anything I can do? And I said, yes, I really need this, this, and this. She ran to Walmart and then dropped it off. And I was a wreck. I'm sitting in my recliner, my hair's not done, I'm in my pajamas, and she didn't care. I didn't care. She didn't care, but she was nice enough to go and do that for me. There's other women. One of my friends sent me her hands-free pump, and that was a game changer, because the whole concept to me, I pumped for quite a few months at first, and it got to where I didn't even want to see a pump. Oh, I did not want to see a pump. But these hands-free ones, you just put them right in your undergarments, and I was able to go about my business, and it pumped, and it would pump 4 ounces, 4 or 5 ounces. So that was amazing. She sent me that. I think it was LV was what it was called. It worked great for me. It worked great for me. So ask for help. Lactation counselors can help. Mine wasn't much of a help other than getting me the supplemental nursing system. That's really all. I think it's SNS is what it's called. That's all she really did for me. I remember when she first visited me in the hospital, she walked in and she's like, she saw Hannah nursing great then. And she was like, okay, number 8, you don't even need me. And in my mind, that's like what I thought too. Number 8, I got this in the bag, right? Nope. Hannah threw me for a loop. And then ask for meals if you need to. I'm sure someone at this is why a local church is so important too. It's so important to be involved in a local church, because women there, especially if they're in the throes of motherhood as well, they should be able to help you. So ask for meals, ask for help around the house. I'm sure there's a teen girl in your church that can be a mother's helper. That would be huge. If you don't mind someone come over, where I was so humbled, I didn't care who came over at that point. But I had help. Abby cooked for everything. Abby and the girls kept the house clean. My husband was just there for me for emotional support if I needed it, and definitely explain to your husband how you're feeling. He's not going to be able to he doesn't have the words. Mine did not have the words to help me. In fact, he was very supportive in whatever I decided. That's what we should do. He didn't push for nursing. He's like, nurse if you want to nurse, do bottles if you want to do bottles. The important thing is she's fed. And I agreed with him, but my mind was in a place that I wasn't capable of just quitting nursing and being okay with that. That's what I should have done. Just quitting nursing and being okay with that. When she got to 9 months, I finally was there, but it took me 9 months. So realize that it's not forever. This is a season. And I think one of the things I did to myself was I was in my mind, I didn't see it. I was always going to be trickle feeding. I was always going to be pumping. And I should have just realized this is not going to last forever. And I mean, the last 3 years have flown by. You know, she's almost 3. She's a few weeks away from being 3. So it's completely flown by. Take one day at a time. I wish I would have enjoyed the small, beautiful moments with her. I did not enjoy postpartum with her. She might be my last baby. You know, I'm almost 33 years old. She's number 8. I feel very good with our family size. I'm hoping soon I'll be a grandma. You know, I know my son probably wants to have a baby within the next couple years. So I'm I'm at a good point with family size and everything. So she was probably my last. I didn't enjoy it enough, and I just I was in a place where every kid's different, every pregnancy is different, every postpartum is different, and that's okay. You don't have to have a schedule when you're, especially in those first few months. You can let things slide. You can let things around the house slide. You're not out to prove anything to anyone. Um, I know for me, when I had smaller kids, I got comments all the time about my family size. Wow, better you than me. Wow, are you're capable of taking care of all those kids? And I think because of my type A personality, I was going to prove to everyone that, yeah, I have these kids and look at me. They're lined up in a row. I have my ducks lined up in a row. I can handle it. I am more than capable of handling it. Well, with motherhood, sometimes we're not. Motherhood is hard, and motherhood is very strenuous on us physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's okay to admit that we struggle sometimes. Who cares if someone with one kid is looking down their nose at you because you have 5 and like telling you, this is too hard, you shouldn't do it with 5. They're having a hard time with 1. Every kid is hard. It doesn't matter if you have 1, it doesn't matter if you have 5, it doesn't matter if you have 8, it's all hard. So you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Listen to your body. If you need to take more time to heal, take more time to heal. Like I said, you are not forsaking the assembling because you're healing from having a baby. It is a major medical event, especially if you have a C-section. They've literally taken your insides out, put them on your body, and taken the baby out and put them back in. And it's crazy what you go through. So listen to your body. Remember that it's your kid and your choice. Okay, your kid, your choice. Fed is the best. I don't care what you say. If you try breastfeeding and it is too hard for you, which it might be, we all have our limits. It's too hard for you. It is not lazy to give them formula. It is not lazy to go to bottles. Fed is the best. Don't compare yourself to other moms. Other moms went through a different pregnancy. Other moms have a different kid with a different personality. So it's not going to be the same as yours. You don't have to do the other things. You don't have to do the other things that other moms in your church are doing. So take our church, for instance, and this is what I love. Not all of us are cookie cutters in our church. We're not all cookie cutters. We don't do things exactly the same. I have hospital births. Okay. I will not ever have a home birth. My husband has put his foot down about that. He does not want me having a home birth. And I am fine with that. All of my hospital births, yes, I know, Nicole, this is the exception to the rule, but all of my hospital births have gone great. They've not pushed anything on me. I have been in full control of what goes on with my body, with my baby. So I've never had any problems with that. We have other ladies that have given birth in a birth center. We have other ladies that have given birth at home. And we all do things differently in our church. Some of us co-sleep, some of us sleep train. Some of us, I don't really think any of us vax. That is the one thing that we're kind of all united on. But there's, when it comes to pregnancy, our pregnancy care, some see a midwife, some see a doctor, so we're all doing things differently. And I think that's a good thing. If you ever get to a point where you're just doing something because that's how it's done in your church and you don't really have a strong conviction either way, it's probably not a good sign. You need to do things based off principles and your beliefs and your system, not just because if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. If you're not comfortable with giving birth at home, don't give birth at home. Go to the hospital and Don't worry about what anyone else might say about it. And if there are people in your church saying something about it, shame on them. That's on them. So research herbs that help. Okay, so these are Sarah's herbs that she recommended to me. She also went through this, and these are some things that really, really helped her. So lemon balm, but this is a gentle relaxant. Avoid it if you have thyroid issues. I could not take this. And a lot of women have thyroid issues. I could not take this because it is a gentle relaxant, or it's not because it's a gentle relaxant, but because it can interfere with thyroid. Tulsi, and if I'm not saying these right, I'm sorry, Nicole. She would know, Nicole and Sarah would know how to say these. Tulsi, I don't know. Tulsi, balancing, energizing, and calming. Sounds good to me. Chamomile, I love chamomile tea. That's about the extent that I've taken this. It is very calming. Chamomile is very calming. Wort, it is an antidepressant, and that's a well-known one. Valerian, it is sedative and calming. And I will recommend this rescue remedy. I did get a bottle of this and I did take it multiple times a day when my body would start going through an anxiety attack. I didn't realize it then, but now I realize it was anxiety. It usually came when it came time to nurse her because I was worried my milk wouldn't let down. My whole body would start from head to foot flushing, very, very hot. I would get very, very hot, and then I would get very, very cold and clammy. So my heart would start beating really fast, and my ears would kind of ring. And so now I know now that was just anxiety. That's the only time that's happened to me is during that dark time of my life. So the only reason I couldn't really put my finger on it was because I'd never been through that. Now I know what it was. But I did get Rescue Remedy and I would take that right before I nursed, and it really did help calm me. It was calming, focus, recenter. You can get that off of Amazon. It's just in a little amber bottle. And it's also good for kids. Kids can take it if they fall and they get a scrape and they're just like hyperventilating because they're hurt. You can give them a dropper full of that. It's really good for that. So, um, and then there was Sertaline, and that is I've never had to go on medication. I don't think I was a point where I needed to because I did not have thoughts of self-harm, and I did not have thoughts of harm to any of my kids. If you are to that point where you are thinking of harming yourself or your children, I would definitely look into this. It is a Zoloft medication, and you could do very low doses. And I know that has tremendously helped some women that have told me about their struggles. So um, be careful because some of them have side effects just like this, like depression, anxiety. Obviously, if they're going to have those type of side effects, you're doing more harm than good. So I'm very leery of prescription medications, which is why I always try to go the natural route. I was on ashwagandha. I did some research myself while I was sitting there for hours trying to nurse, and I was on an ashwagandha. I think it was some pink stork. It was something to do with moods and balancing hormones. It was an ashwagandha thing, but I think Sarah or Nicole would know if you need to be careful about ashwagandha in the chat. But I was on that and I was on Rescue Remedy. I did try a tincture that Sarah had made and it made me have more anxiety attacks. So I laid off of that. And then I waited a few weeks. I tried it again a few weeks later, same effect. It made me very anxious, made me feel very anxious. I did not like it. So I didn't take it again. We have since found out that it had something in it that affected me because of my thyroid. It might have been the lemon balm. I'm not sure. So I was on that. I was on vitamin E. I was on vitamin D because it was winter, and winters in Illinois are really, really bad. And so seasonal depression can play into that. It's very dark, very early. It's very cold. Um, with some of my babies, I actually welcomed that because I didn't have to go out as much. So I was able to just kind of hole up and hibernate. But it was opposite with her. I found with her, I had to be around people. I only took a couple of weeks to recover because mentally I needed to be around my church family. I needed to be around my friends. I needed to be around people. So I felt I did worse not being around people. I needed my little tribe of women encouraging me and helping me. So I was back at church pretty soon. So give your body grace and give your home grace. You know, embrace the mess. It's it's not going to kill you. If you are becoming anxious and overwhelmed because your house is a wreck, It would be well worth it to invest the money in paying maybe a teen girl from the church to cover and clean. It would be worth it to pay someone a cleaning service, a teen girl, probably a teen girl, because they tend to do a really good job and they could use the money, and it's someone so if you want someone you wouldn't mind having in the house, I would greatly encourage that. Realize that the blessings will come. They will. You'll get over it. You'll get through this dark time. Time flies. They'll soon be grown. Put the time in when they're young, like not newborn. I'm talking like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And they're going to be such a help when they're older. My older kids helped me out so much during this time. If I didn't have them to cook and clean, I would have had to hire the help for sure. But then I think it showed them too, prepared them for when they eventually have a baby, made them realize I need to be easy. I need to ask for help. A lot of what they're learning, you're modeling. So just remember that. It's okay to admit struggles. It's okay to admit you don't have it all together. Tell your family when you're struggling. With my husband, especially, I'd be like, today was a good day. I didn't really have intrusive thoughts. Today was a good day. I'm an okay mom today. And then another day would be, I am the worst mom ever. Nursing was horrible. He would come home one day and be like, nursing was great. Then the next day, nursing was horrible. But I thought you said nursing was great yesterday. Well, it was yesterday, but then today it was horrible. So it's okay to tell them when you're struggling, talk it out with them. Remember that God sees and he understands. Remember our verse at the beginning, he gently leads those that are with young. I love that part of that verse because it shows us that even though God was never a mom, right? He sees our struggles and he understands that it's hard, and he's going to gently lead us. He's not going to be behind us cracking a whip. Why aren't you doing better at cleaning your house? You're just a lazy mom. You don't breastfeed. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? No, he gently leads us. He gently leads us. So I love that part of that verse. Just remember that perfection is a facade. No one has it all together, and some are just better at pretending. Instagram is fake. Facebook is fake. We only post the good moments. We don't post the dark moments. And that's why I wanted to be real and authentic in this, because while I do a lot of encouraging articles for women, and I focus on the good parts of motherhood, there are some not so pretty parts as well. And because I never want to appear like I do have it all together, I want to be open and honest with all of you. And authenticity is so important to me. And I want you to know that motherhood is hard. Going into this is hard. When you go into motherhood, you are deciding to sacrifice a lot. You are sacrificing your body to pregnancy. You are sacrificing your body post pregnancy. Like I said, I deal with chronic pain every day of my life, and that is in direct relation to hard deliveries. Would I take that back? Absolutely not. Looking at all of my 8 children, would I have stopped at Chloe and never had Lana on down or Allie on down? I mean, no, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't give up any of my children. It was completely worth it. But that doesn't mean that those problems aren't still there. And that doesn't mean that they don't exist. You are sacrificing your body. You are sacrificing sometimes your health. You are sacrificing your spine. You are sacrificing your pelvic floor. You are sacrificing sleep. You are sacrificing so much to be a mom. And I don't ever want to lose focus of the fact that it is hard. It's nitty gritty. It's hard. You go through seasons. Please get help if you go through that. Do not think that you are an anomaly. Do not think that this never happens to someone else, because it does. And that's why I want to be truthful and honest. I was at a very dark place. I would never want to go back to that place. And I 100% vehemently disagree with anyone who would say that that was a spiritual problem. It was not a spiritual problem. It was completely postpartum issues, hormones going crazy, emotions going crazy. Something was out of alignment. And once I got those things back in, I'm fine. Like it took about 18 months, but since then it's been fine. I am my old self. I felt someday like I didn't even know who Cassandra was, and I didn't even know when would I get the old Cassandra back. That was encouraging to other people. I was the one at that point who needed the encouragement. I needed to rest in the support of my friends, and I needed to hear advice, and I needed to hear how I was a great mom and I could do this and I could get through this season of my life. I was the one who needed encouragement during that. And I got it. I got it from all my friends and those in my support system. So some of the most toxic people I know are those who look the most put together. And where I will always strive to be ladylike and classy. And yes, I like earrings. And yes, I like jewelry. And yes, I like fingernail polish. And yes, I like having my hair done. Yes, because that's just I'm feminine. That's how I am. I will always strive to be put together in a way because it makes me feel better about myself. I will never pretend to be perfect or have all the answers or have it all together. And there are people who literally think they do no wrong, who literally think they are perfect, who literally think they have no problem, and that's not me. And you'll not find that on the channel. And for those people, I just say fake because I know there are no perfect people, and I know no one has it all together, and I know there are struggles. So fake. I call it out for what it is. Authenticity and being genuine is what connects people, not lording it over someone. Look at me, look at what a great mom I am, look at how great I am put together. Your struggles might help someone who's going through the same exact thing. I now know that is why I went through what I did, because I had never experienced postpartum depression and hormones to that extent. And now I have a lot more understanding and a lot more compassion for those who go through it. I now think that my chronic back pain is so I will have more compassion and I will be more sensitive to those going through it. When I was in my 20s, I remember there was someone who was really struggling with back pain at church. And I just remember inwardly rolling my eyes and thinking, would you just suck it up and stop complaining about it? Since I've been through that and I deal with that now, I say, shame on you, Cassandra, for being that way. Because I had to go get to a point where I was literally crawling through my house on my hands and knees in so much pain and agony that I now realized why some people are, hence we say, complaining, talking about their struggles, whatever you want to call it. I found that those who often accuse others of complaining, they're accusing them of complaining, going through something that they themselves have never been through. So all the bad things that happened in my life, I tried to think I went through this because God wanted me to help someone else. I can now help someone else who's going through postpartum depression. I have a game plan. I have advice I can give them. Whereas before, maybe I couldn't because I hadn't been through it. So I didn't truly know. Your kids want a mom who loves them, not a mom who's perfect or has it all put together. It's okay to admit your shortcomings and it's okay to strive to be better. It's okay. At the end of the day, motherhood is hard. The hardest thing I have ever done personally, having kids shaped my body, it shaped my emotions, it changed who I was at the core of my being. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most rewarding. And I will say that. I love having a piano studio. I love having an online ministry for women. But that's not the most rewarding thing I've done. The most rewarding thing I've done is raising godly children. It's a fight, and it's time to drop the perception that there are perfect moms and perfect people because we won't be that until we see Christ. We can always strive to be better, but motherhood is hard and it will always be hard. And just remember, postpartum depression is real. It does not indicate a spiritual problem. Could it at times? I don't know. Maybe if you take 9 months to recover from having a baby, so you're not going to church that whole time, you're not reading your Bible the whole time. Yes, I could see how then it would probably be from a spiritual problem. But if you're back in church in a relative, you know, 3, 4 weeks time after giving birth to a baby, if you're reading your Bible consistently during that time, if you're praying, which I was doing all of that. I was in church 2 weeks after Hannah was born, lugging all of my stuff, my pump and my supplemental nursing system and bottles and formula and all of it. Um, if you're in church after a relative short amount of time, you're reading your Bible, you're praying, it's not a spiritual problem, it's a hormonal problem. Look for things that can help you. Research different herbs. Reach out to someone who knows herbs really well, like Nicole or Sarah. They know herbs really well. They know what contradictions might come from this herb. Don't take this if you have thyroid problems. Don't take this if you have gallbladder problems, whatever it is. Reach out to someone who has a knowledge of that and then try different things. There's been lots of success with rescue remedy, with different herbs and homeopathics and things. So, but if you ever get to the point where you are thinking of harming yourself or you think of harming your children, you need to seek help from a professional, someone who knows the side effects of different medications, someone who might be able to offer help in the form of an anxiety relieving medication. I don't know much about that. I've always steered clear of it, but I would rather have someone reach out for help and be on a low dose of some medication that's going to help them not harm their children. There's too many stories about women who were in postpartum depression. They were begging for help and not being heard, and they ended up taking their life. They ended up taking the lives of their children. So if you are listening to this and that is you, please help. So I'm sorry, I did not keep up the chat. Let me see. Nicole said lots of companies making good rebalancing formulas. Wish Garden, Wish, W-I-S-H, Wish Garden makes a nice one. Julie said our culture in us won't let you have that balance of this is hard but worth it. You can't ever say it's a struggle because you asked for this. Yes, and that was the comments I was getting from from people. Wow, you're not allowed to ever get government help because you've had all these children. And I still agree partly with that. I mean, it's why we're spending $350 a week on groceries, right? Because we had all the children, my husband wants to provide for them. But then there are other things where circumstances play into it. Your husband gets laid off, he loses his job, you shouldn't feel guilty with needing help at different times. That's why those things are there. So let me go up real quick and make sure. So she said, Nicole said, I think having some herbs on hand or taking very gentle proactive measures until it's clear you need something more isn't a bad idea. And I would say if you're pregnant or getting ready to have a baby, have some of this stuff on hand. I had to scramble to kind of find it. I found like every lactation supplement that would help my milk come in, I could. I was taking brewer's yeast. I was taking sunflower lecithin to help with letdown. I was making like nursing cookies. I was eating oatmeal. I was taking milk thistle, blessed thistle, like anything that could help milk. I was taking it. I was drinking pink drinks from Starbucks. Good excuse, right? Coconut water. Body Armor's really helped me. All this stuff is like coming back to me now, even though it's been 3 years. Body Armor's really helped me, helped hydrate me. I noticed a significant difference when I would drink coconut milk, Body Armor's, different liquid IV. I even tried those. So I was doing it all. I was doing it all. So, but yeah, she said she often takes holy basil and very gentle balancing herbs. So those, Melissa, those are called like intrusive thoughts when we have just all these, and I would too, like, what if she suffocates? And it would become overwhelming to where I would be having panic attacks like my baby's going to die of SIDS. Just stupid thoughts that probably wouldn't happen, but that's just the place your mind is in. She said, I had never heard of that anxiety. I was having scary thoughts of my baby getting hurt. That would take my breath away. So yeah, it's crazy what it can do. Yeah, the postpartum hormonal drop is real. Now, in most women, it only lasts a week or two. And I had the baby blues with my other babies, but it was a whole different ballpark after Hannah. It lasted a good year, 18 months. It was really bad. Now, the really bad stuff was probably the first few months, but I still dealt with, like I said, I couldn't even talk about it or revisit that time in my life until just recently. I finally had a place where I could. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I don't know how long we've been. Hopefully you could hear me. I only got a notice once that my internet was unstable. So hopefully I didn't buffer too much, but hopefully this sounds all right. I hope you all have a great week. I'm going to work on getting some more guests on here pretty quick. Life's been full. Life's been busy, but now it's pretty chill until the holidays. So that's good. But go love on your husband, go love on your kids. And if you need help, please by all means, reach out and get help. Even if you need to shoot me an email, I don't have all the answers, but I will be more than willing to give you some encouragement if that's what you need. So